Imagine this for a U.S. president. You rise from a log cabin, you save the Union in the Civil War, you fight for black civil rights, and then, just 200 days into your term, you're assassinated.
It's an incredible story. And that's James A. Garfield.
That's him, and it's the focus of C.W. Goodyear's fantastic biography, President Garfield, From Radical to Unifier.
Right, and Goodyear's whole point is that this so-called forgotten president is actually crucial for understanding our own debates today.
Debates about democracy, reform, all of it.
Exactly.
So our goal here is to really pull out the biggest insights from the book, just enough to shift how you see that whole Reconstruction era and how it connects to now.
Okay, where do we start?
Well, you have to start with his unbelievable rise. From a log cabin in Ohio, raised by a widowed mother, working his way up through pure self-education. I mean, it's just this story of incredible grit.
It is. But what Goodyear does so well is frame that as more than just a personal success story. It was sort of a test case for the American Republic itself.
A test case for what, exactly?
Well, could the country, after the Civil War, actually deliver on its promises of social mobility, of civic equality?
So it forces you to ask, when we look at success stories, how much is individual willpower and how much is the system, either helping or holding people back?
Precisely.
And from that background, he becomes this moral firebrand.
Yeah.
A radical Republican.
A fiery one, too. He was an anti-slavery orator who saw the Civil War as, and this is his phrase, a second American Revolution.
He didn't just want to win the war, he wanted to remake the country.
Yeah, and he backed that up. He pushed for really strong federal laws to protect black civil and political rights. Think the 14th and 15th Amendments.
Which raises a huge question that we still grapple with, right? If a country commits a massive injustice like slavery, what does it owe afterward? And who decides when the repair work is done?
Who gets to say how far that revolution should go?
But then, and this is the tension in the book's subtitle, he shifts. He goes from this radical to a unifier, a negotiator. How does that even happen?
Yeah. That is the central puzzle of his life. And Goodyear nails it with a quote from Garfield himself.
What's the quote?
He said, "It must be so easy to be a man of extremes. It is incredibly painful to see so many sides to every subject."
Wow. So is that moderation a good thing, a virtue, or is it just watering down the fight for justice?
That's the question. I mean, in a super polarized time, is it better to stand on principle no matter what, or to compromise just to keep the whole system from breaking down?
And that question comes to a head almost immediately when he becomes president. This huge showdown over reform versus the spoils system.
The Conkling showdown. It was dramatic. It was all about patronage, who gets government jobs.
Specifically, the New York Custom House, which was a huge center of power and money.
A massive one. And Garfield flat out refused to hand appointments over to Senator Roscoe Conkling's political machine. It was a huge assertion of presidential power.
A strike against corruption.
A big one. But it also makes you think, if those political spoils are the glue holding parties together, what's the cost of getting rid of them?
And of course, that very fight leads directly to the tragic end.
It does. He was shot by a man who was angry he didn't get a government job, a disgruntled office seeker. The link couldn't be clearer.
His death, which was this long, agonizing public spectacle, became this symbol.
Yeah, Goodyear argues that the public outrage is what finally pushed the country toward real reform, what accelerated the Pendleton Civil Service Act.
It makes you wonder why some tragedies, like Garfield's, become these major turning points for policy, while so many others just fade away.
A really good question.
So to pull it all together, Garfield's life is this incredible template for how a leader tries to balance radical ideas, political reality, and the need for reform.
It is. And as you think about all this, maybe consider the relationship between political violence and actual policy change. How does turning a leader into a martyr help, or maybe even hinder an honest look at what they actually accomplished and where they failed?